And it seems that we are live. Good afternoon to most of you. Good morning to some of you. I think that it doesn't even apply to good morning. Good night to some of you, actually, in certain parts of the world. Google I/O has just finished, and our editorial roundtable is something that just must happen. You guys want our opinions over everything that we saw, and that's what we are here for. And we've got a ton of coverage. Joe Levi just posted a full editorial on the 5 top things that come with Android M. In addition, all the news are already live. You can follow us on Pocketnow and make sure you get that information. Everything is social as well. And you can expect the Pocketnow Daily to bring you more details today, later. I will do a full Google I/O edition of the show. And yes, of course, our Pocketnow Weekly will go in-depth with everything that we saw. So right now this is going to be a quick 30-minute roundtable that focuses just on the top stuff, the news, and obviously the Q&A is enabled for every one of you to provide your feedback or whatever things you would like to cover, but obviously we can't cover everything in a 30-minute video, so we will try to do our best to do this. Let's start with a roll call, starting with Mr. Hayato Huseman, contributing editor, one of our new editors in the team. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great as well. So good to have you. We also have the very special Prius edition of Mr. Joe Levi, senior editor. How are you?
I'm doing very well, but it's very hot.
It's very hot. Okay, we will try to keep this short and sweet then. Obviously, we also have our editorial director, Mr. Michael Fisher. So good to talk to you again, sir.
Wonderful to be back on a panel full of, generic white tech guys. We just finished another round of hiring at Pocketnow, and, well, we tried, ladies. That's all I will say. Lovely to see you gentlemen again, and let's talk tech.
I'm Native American, Michael, so...
Hey, so am I, Joe. What a coinkydink. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
sorry,
over here.
I'm not even going to talk about that. Our newest addition to the Pocketnow team, but actually somebody that's been with us for the longest of time, Mr. Jules Wong. How are you?
I am good. Right now I'm at the station WERS. We are playing XTC. Sense is working overtime. I feel exactly that way right now.
Good. And nothing that beer can't fix. Chief News Editor, Mr. Stephen Schenk, how are you?
I am doing well.
I forgot that.
I'm getting my full of Android M news, so all cylinders firing.
And yeah, you're actually going to start this off. How about if you tell everybody what we just got with Android M?
Sorry to interrupt, Stephen, but before you jump right into that, Jules, can we get you to mute your mic while other people are talking, because that station music is going to just drive me nuts all day.
As lovely as it is.
Music, actually.
Time and a place.
I was liking the music.
sorry to override you there, host.
This sounds like that specific moment when Michael is removing the plastic film from a phone. It's like, silence, please.
That's right.
Go ahead,
Welcome
Steven.
to episode 150 of the Pocketnow Weekly.
Soon.
All right.
So, to the surprise of absolutely no one, we got our announcement of Android M today. The preview release is out now. Google just made downloads available for the Nexus 5, Nexus 6, Nexus 9, even the Nexus Player, if you're into that whole Android TV thing. Sadly, not the Nexus 7. We have moved on in the tablet world, but let's get right to features. We heard a lot of these rumored in the past weeks and months. A lot of them were confirmed here. One of the big ones, especially for me, is new granular app permissions. First of all, permissions aren't going to be approved when you install an app from the Play Store. Instead, the app itself is going to ask you about these permissions as you go to use them for the first time. So if you're not trying out all the features of an app initially, you might not approve everything all at once. If something comes up, you want to send a text message, it'll ask you if it can do that, you'll give it your approval or not, and then later on you can go back and revoke certain approvals or grant ones you may have denied initially in app settings. These are going to be arriving for new apps built with the Android M SDK. Old apps will keep the old way of doing permissions for now. Presumably as they update and start being coded for Android M in particular, we'll see this new support arrive. This is huge. We had the old app ops thing several generations ago. It was kind of half-baked, so they've really formalized this. It looks like it's going to be pretty graceful with apps that's able to deny permissions without them failing in weird, unexpected ways. So if you're a privacy enthusiast, great news there. And there's a change to how links are going to be handled within the system. Google really doesn't like it when you click on a URL and doesn't know what to do with it. It's asking you if you want to open this in a browser, if you want to use a specific app to open it. So going forward with Android M, apps will be able to claim certain kinds of links. The great example they gave in the presentation was Twitter. You click on a tweet, a link that's been sent to you in an email or a text or something, the system will know to open it directly in the Twitter app rather than loading a Twitter web page in the browser. And there's an authentication system where apps will be able to verify that they're the ones who should be opening this, so it won't go somewhere unexpected. And if it works as well as Google promised, it should all be pretty darn graceful. We have improvements to battery life. There are some new tools to extend the battery life of devices if they're sitting unused for a long period of time. The system will take advantage of accelerometers, detect when a device is just sitting there being wholly unused versus carrying around. You might be checking it occasionally. And if it's been in sleep mode for a while, you're not touching it, it will start checking things online with less frequency. So it won't sync as often. Your apps won't necessarily be immediately up to date when you go to pick up the device, but as a result, it will stretch the battery life super far. I think Google said we might even see double battery life depending on what your app usage situation looked like.
Double in standby mode, yeah.
Yeah, they did two Nexus 9 side by side, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not a big, heavy social user, your mileage might vary there, but it has the potential to deliver some big improvements. We heard about some improvements to Google Now, including this exciting Now on Tap thing that will let you do these really great contextual queries from within apps. So if you're watching a movie or looking at a picture in an app, you might be able to just click and hold, press and hold on the home button, have Google Now pop up, and just ask, where was this taken? Who am I looking at? Tell me something about the artist playing this song. And Google will be able to pull information out of the app to figure out what you're talking about and then give you the information based on the question you asked, hopefully really, really smoothly. It sounds like we won't have to wait for apps to be refreshed with the support in mind. The sort of in-app search Google already uses to generate search results inside of apps will be extended for the use of Now on Tap. We have Android Pay has been confirmed. This is like the next generation of Android Wallet. One of the big differences here is that it's going to be baked right into the OS such that you don't have to manually pull up an app each time you want to do a payment. So no longer clicking a wallet, entering in your PIN, and then tapping and paying. So long as your phone is woken up and you entered in your unlock code when waking the device from sleep, you can just tap on the NFC reader no matter where you are in the system, and it should make that payment straight away. It's not clear yet how that will work, or if at all, for people who don't use lock screens, so that includes myself. I'm a little worried, but hopefully we will learn more about that in the future. Android Pay also has an API to allow apps to offer this kind of tap and pay support directly within. And fingerprint scanning. We had heard that fingerprint support might be baked into the OS, and that's been confirmed. You can use that to authenticate Android Pay, as well as apps will use that for their own internal authentication. And there's been some suggestions that as a result of this, we might see a fingerprint reader built into the next Nexus phone, or phones, as we've been hearing, but that remains to be seen. There were a lot of code changes, but that's sort of dev-focused and outside our purview here. Some little things they mentioned about changing how text is highlighted. Copy and paste should work a little bit better. And volume control is getting an overhaul. It was kind of completely borked in Android L Lollipop. They tried to improve this, and it ended up confusing a lot of users. So for Android M, look for it to be more straightforward, as well as giving you really convenient control over individual ringer, app volume, sliders. So you can get everything just where you like it. I think that hits all the major points here. Am I forgetting anything that you guys heard mentioned?
No, I think
the majority of.
Yeah, that's about the most of it there. Go ahead, Joe.
So that's the majority of what we saw with Android M. There were some other things announced that tie into Android that aren't particular to Android M, like photos that we'll talk about later, Android Auto and whatnot. But as far as Android M goes, this looks like it's going to be a very iterative release. It's not going to be very, very major. We've talked about the highlights of what we're going to see. A lot of what we saw, Android Pay compared to Google Wallet, the functionality is essentially going to be the same from my experience, because I've been using Google Wallet for a lot. So it's more a rebranding and an optimization, and I think that that sums up what Android M is. It's taking everything that we had and just tweaking it, making it a little bit better. To see if I can pull out the quote here. I don't have it on tap, but Android M is all about quality, and everything has been reevaluated. That was Dave Burke, Vice President of Engineering.
Yeah, conscious decision to focus on quality, end-to-end, a focus on product excellence, squashing bugs, and rethinking core aspects.
Yeah, the emphasis there is end-to-end. They made the implication that this was a ground-up relook at the code base. So I would say that Android M is probably going to be 5.2 rather than 6.0. But with an end-to-end approach, we might see a full 6-point bump. It's a possibility.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, what do you guys think will be the final name? I actually asked that on Pocketnow Daily
I just saw a interesting theory on this. They were zooming in on during the Android Wear announcement. I forget the name of the guy who was on stage there, but his watch. Some people thought that they could see a milkshake on the wallpaper there, or the watch face there. So maybe Android milkshake. Who knows?
Android milkshake. Go ahead.
Around the campus, a lot of people are using macadamia nut cookie. That's what's being used on the Google campus. I'm all for marshmallow, but I think we're probably going to end up with milkshake.
Milkshake.
For what it's worth, from the extended beat in Cambridge, there were only sugar cookies, so I cannot be of any assistance in figuring out. There's no M in any of that.
Were there macadamia nuts in the cookies?
Not that I'm aware of. That's the thing. That's
and to sort of go off on a limb on that, I mean, we've seen Google use the 3-word desserts for its internal code names. I mean, you know.
And then you have ice cream sandwich.
Meringue pie. They have it.
Then you have ice cream sandwich.
And then you have ice cream sandwich, which would be like the perfect example. I guess, and we're going to talk about Android Wear later, because probably what's most shocking about those news, Stephen, that close-up, is that Android Wear was really just Android Wear, and we'll talk about that later as well.
Yeah, it wasn't that big a focus. It was reminding us where it's come, but we didn't really hear a lot about where it's going, what's next, compared to last year when we not only got the information about the first Android Wear devices going for sale, we saw the Samsung Gear Live announced for the first time ever. So this was a much lower key as far as wearables go.
Now, when it comes to Android, there was an announcement of Android, expanding its reach. 2 years ago, we saw Android be announced for products like lamps, light bulbs, and stuff. And that didn't really take off. It was pretty much a prototype that never left that stage, unless I'm wrong, Joe. Do you know anything about that? Like Android.
I think you're referring to Android at Home, and we saw an SDK that came out and a clock that was based on it, but that was about it. It fell off the map. So you're getting into Brillo and into what is it? So
Weave.
Whatever
So
the
exactly.
communication protocol is. Weave.
Yeah. So Google just announced something called Project Brillo, and this is really the company stripping down Android and making it usable to things that don't need a smart operating system like a smartphone or a tablet, but really, let's say, a smart light bulb, a smart oven, a smart refrigerator, whatever you want to call it. And Project Brillo is really that core operating system that's going to be used to power these products. And what's cool about this is that it is extremely efficient. It doesn't really require a specific silicone. Apparently, it has a broad silicone support. It's very easy to secure, and it has very minimal requirements. And what Google is doing is that they're launching a new, I would say, code, or I don't think it's a code, but it's called Weave. And it's pretty much the common language that will be used between products within Project Brillo to communicate with each other. So, for example, you can...
I termed it as a communication protocol.
Yeah, it's a communication protocol. And so the way this would be is for example, you could be writing a recipe on your tablet or your phone, and through your smartphone you will be able to turn on your oven and make it work and actually apply certain of these things through, and apparently Weave is going to be the communication protocol between all these products. So it does seem that Google wants to make the Internet of Things something hot. They're really focused on getting this done. We've seen Apple work on HomeKit for a little bit, and obviously,
really curious to see how this stacks up against HomeKit efforts.
Exactly. So we really don't know. The problem is that announcement lasted for like 3 minutes, so we really don't have details on how this is going to work. What we do know is that the developer preview of Brillo will be available in Q3 2015, and the stack for Weave will be available in Q4. So later this year, we will learn more about this, and probably in CES 2016, we'll see the Android-powered toaster that Michael has always wanted to have.
The one thing that I got out of this from a developer standpoint is Weave is that communication protocol. It will be able to run on Brillo, but it is not tied to Brillo. So you're not going to have a Brillo-powered device to be able to use Weave as your common language that the devices, both the controllers and the devices themselves, use to intercommunicate. So we could see stuff powered by Arduino or stuff powered by anybody else that can tap into the Weave protocol, and those devices won't have to be powered by Android Brillo.
And if I'm not mistaken, Weave is also cross-platform?
Yeah, by definition, it's a cross-platform protocol.
Okay. And this is going to be absolutely key to any kind of success with Internet of Things. You have to make it really easy for the people making this hardware to make it appeal to as many users as possible and to make it as cheap to implement as they can. So right now, you want to buy a connected light bulb, you're paying a ton of money for that. There's no guarantee it's going to work with all your stuff. So a standard like this could be really important to seeing adaptation of this really kick off.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, the standard communication that we have right now appears to be either proprietary apps or proprietary services, like Works with Nest is one, and believe it or not, If This Then That seems to be our hub for making all of these things talk together. So this takes the third-party service, the requirement that they are connected to the internet proper and connected to a subscription and know when you're turning your lights on and off, and it can put that more local so that your home can know and can do things in and about itself without sending that out to the internet proper.
Right. And, well, am I missing anything about Project Brillo, or you guys think we can move on to Google Now and a little broader scope of everything that we got?
Sure. For what it's worth, Jaime, I've started looking at my Twitter feed, so I think that's an indication that we should move on.
Losing Michael.
Yeah, I talk code and Michael goes to Twitter. I see how it works.
No, Joe, it's not you. I'm so happy to have you back.
Well, take over, Michael.
All right, so what am I talking about? I'm talking about Google Now on tap. Yes. Is that what the rundown decrees?
Yes, you are,
That's
sir.
Awesome. I'm so glad I get to talk about something awesome because Stephen touched on this a little bit before, and like the kind of buzzword of the day with regard to this was context, which can sound a little antiseptic. It can sound it's like context. Well, what does that exactly mean? Google was doing a little bragging on stage about how much data it's managed to accrue over time. Through its knowledge graph and other services. There are apparently 1 billion plus entries in the knowledge graph, everything from, just the name of baseball teams, the name of famous actors, the location of football stadiums or whatever. And Google Now on Tap leverages all of that, and Google talked a little bit about its expanded multi-layer neural net. It basically just talked about how very smart Google is and how it's getting better at accessing all of that information that it sits on. So some of the demos on stage, which were, and I'm going to do my best here, this was the Director of Product Management, Aparna Chenapragada, I think. She was on stage doing this demo of Now on Tap, and where nowadays you have Google Now and it's this kind of thing, and it predicts what information you want when you want it. There's going to be an active component to it. You're going to be able to be looking at something on the screen. The example they gave on stage was an email about Tomorrowland from a friend who's like, hey, you want to go see Tomorrowland tomorrow? And you can long press the home button on your Android device, and a little pop-up card will not take over the whole screen. It'll just pop up from the bottom, and it will contain, it'll search that email for context, and it'll say, hey, Tomorrowland, boom. Here's the IMDb entry for the movie you're talking about. If you want to watch the trailer, here's a link to that. Here's just my note says Blister, but I think that's an autocorrect from Flickster. Yeah, here's a Flickster link if you want to buy tickets for it, which is pretty cool. And but it gets like weirder and awesomer, and if you're a little more wary of Google's intrusive elements, maybe a little freakier. But it's not freaky because Google is not doing anything new here. It's just implementing it differently. It's allowing you to call it over. the email that comes in after that is, hey, can you get the dry cleaning? I forgot to get it. Also, do you want to go to this specific restaurant for dinner, which I'll call Alia? And if you long press the home button, bam, you get a card that contains the Yelp entry for Alia Ristorante, a link to call it, a Google Maps link so you can navigate to it, and an OpenTable link so you can do it. And it will give you a separate card reminding you to get the dry cleaning. And it does all this by just crawling the email, just like Google crawls the internet, and looking for context. And Chenna Pragata told Ars Technica that the neat thing here, and Stephen mentioned this, is that the app doesn't have to do anything custom for this to be supported. That's the reason we wanted to make sure it was based on the platform API. The apps don't have to implement anything for the context to be read. That is the coolest part about this whole thing for me, because it's not going to be like a situation with dual screen on a Samsung phone where, yeah, the dual window is a lot of fun, but only the apps that have the code implemented are going to be able to use it. No, it's basically the new Google Now on Tap can read your screen and try and figure out what you want to know.
Yeah, and
it's
that's
not
a great
limited
surprise
to
because
the
so
cards.
far we've been seeing with like the new cards coming to Google Now, there have been 70 or so new apps that have been supporting these, but this has been something developers had to implement themselves. With Now on Tap, it's going to just be this floodgate opening where everything is working right out of the gate, and that's going to be huge.
Exactly, and it applies to the voice input stuff too. They fired up a Skrillex track on stage, and she did a really good job of pretending like she didn't hate every sound that was coming out of that demo phone. Boy, man, that was rough. But the demo, her assistant, whose name I don't remember, I'm sorry, who also helped develop everything, said, "Okay, Google," and then Spotify paused, and the window came up, and he said, "What's his real name?" And like verbatim, that's what he asked. What's his real name? And in fact, what we got was a Wikipedia entry and a Google card that said, Skrillex's real name is something that I forgot. Except it said his real name. So it's really cool stuff that I'm looking forward to trying out.
How funny is it, though, that they use Spotify in the demo instead of Google Play Music?
Oh.
Yeah, and I really liked
fired.
that. I think it emphasized the fact that third-party apps are going to be really important to this whole thing. And second, it's so refreshing when a company isn't in denial about it. I hate it when like Samsung will take the stage and be like, yeah, you know how when you're using Samsung Milk and this happens? You're like, no, I don't know how that is.
Nobody does.
No clue.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to Google Now on Tap. I think it's going to be hot and very sexy.
And on tap.
It is. Another hot service that was announced today, believe it or not, and this is going to sound ironic because we've been covering rumors of Google Photos update for the last couple of weeks. And, I've been doing most of the posting about this. Thank you, Stephen. And I was like, okay, so it's just going to be removed from Google+. That's going to be it. What's so cool about this? It turns out to be cooler than we thought, and this is actually to answer Mark Washington's question on the Q&A. He's asking if Google+ is Google Photos the only cool thing. Actually, it's not the only cool thing, but it is extremely cool, mainly because, well, first of all, it focuses on three different things. Number one, it wants to become your home for all your photos and videos available. Number two, it wants to help you organize and bring your moments to life. And number three, it wants to make it easy for you to share stuff. So the way it's going to become the home for all your photos is because, first of all, it allows you to store an unlimited amount of photos and videos that are up to 16 megapixels or 1080p videos. That in itself is like, okay, I don't really care if it's great or not, but just to have a service that's not going to be eating up space on my computer or phone or tablet is awesome. That is just perfect. And even better is the fact that this is cross-platform. So it works with iOS, Android, and works on the web. I wish there would have been an application for the Mac or Windows, but Windows was not going to happen, and the Mac is not announced yet. But yeah, that's going to be part of it. There is a lot of pinch to zoom in the gestures that are available here. And the idea is to make it work sort of like the way iOS does with collections, where you can zoom in and out of months, years, days, stuff like that. Other things that
since you mentioned it,
go ahead.
Can I just say that somebody can prove me wrong if they want, but I don't think Google said the word Windows on stage once this entire 3-hour keynote, which is pretty amazing.
Once.
No. Once.
Okay.
Joe?
Okay. All right.
I think they did once in the context that Jaime just mentioned.
Did they say out the window or something like that? Or the second
They
thing
might have
that,
just been referring to web, but I don't know. I think they said that once.
all right. The second thing
But
that they're
anyway,
doing.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So Android Photos is the one thing that I took away from that is not just your smartphone, whether Apple or iOS, or excuse me, iOS or Android. Those are two different things, by the way. It's hot in the car. But it's also other devices. So if you've got a DSLR, if you've got a GoPro, if you've got something else, Google Photos is now your hub for all of your pictures and all of your photos, regardless of if it came from your smartphone, tablet, or your dedicated high-end camera, or your not powered by Android video camera. So it's your central hub, and this unlimited number that you mentioned, Jaime, is free. There is no extra cost to that. The one caveat is, the limitations that you listed, 16 megapixels and 1080p, but they also mentioned that it is a near lossless compression that they're using.
Yeah,
So
of
you're
course.
not going to be getting exactly that image, but the compression they're using to enable them to do that is you're not going to be losing much, if anything, from the original picture up to 16 megapixels.
No, and it was, they showed a demo. It didn't look that bad at all. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it didn't look any different than the original photo, from what I could tell.
And if
Go
I
ahead,
can
Joe.
pull up Christopher Miles' Q&A, Android M also allowing backup apps to back up and restore data up to 25 megs per app to Google Drive.
I was about to ask Joe, what exactly is that? Because this is not pertaining to photos, but yeah, what exactly are they doing here?
So that's something that I didn't catch, but the way Android does that presently is an app can be written to store settings, to store information, to store your login information, credentials, pictures, whatever, and store that with Google, whether that's through Drive proper or through their app storage, so that when you restore a device, for example, you're getting a new device and you want to migrate everything over, it's automatically going to pull down all of the apps that you installed before, and once you've logged into them, whether that's through their proprietary login or through a Google, a Facebook, Twitter, something else, through one of the accounts plugins that's compatible with Android, it's going to automatically bring down your settings, it's going to bring down your state information that was already there. The downside has been that storage space is relatively limited, and from what I understand from this question, that's being extended out to 25 meg, so you'll be able to have more stuff available there. That actually answers one of the questions to my article. I'm sorry, I'm not going to drop your name because that's a different window, but the question was asked, have they done anything to make the backup process any better? This is the way that Android does it, and honestly, having used Apple's, having used back with Windows CE and Android, this is the best way. I can take a generic device, log in, and be completely restored back to my state, including wallpaper and icons and widgets, within a matter of an hour or so. And it's all fresh. It's not a stale backup. It's all fresh, brought down.
But that's the thing. That's currently what iCloud does in a way. You can store applications can separately store their stuff on iCloud, and in a way, it's like bringing it on par with iCloud, I guess. Or,
yeah, the way that they're doing it is fundamentally different. The result is fundamentally the same.
Right. Okay, cool. So that answers that question on the Q&A. Just to continue with Google Photos before we lose the scope. The second focus of the Google Photos application is for it to organize and bring moments to life. And we've seen Apple try to help you tag photos in iPhoto and in its new in its new Apple Photos application, and help you be able to have faces and that determine and filter photos. But it seems that Google's service is going to be much smarter in being able to tag everything without the need of you doing it. Because that's the problem with Apple's service. You have to tag everybody, whereas Google is going to do it automatically. And for some reason, it seems that it's going to be capable of even filtering your baby photos all the way back. So you select the specific contact, and you can go all the way back to whatever photos you have from that person, to whichever photos you have as far back as you do. We'll just have to give it a try and see how good that is. We also notice that there is context search. Like, for example, if you're searching for a baseball game, you're searching for photos of a baseball game. It seems that Google is able to determine that these specific photos were taken at a baseball stadium, and it'll allow you to filter those photos searching for text. And that is extremely
literally by typing in the word
Yeah.
baseball stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy to me. And I've said that for a long time. I thought that was an opportunity. Maybe I was rather short-sighted. I thought that might be an opportunity for a third-party developer to be like, oh, let me cook up an app that can actually search photos through plain text. Because I do that all the time. They made a great point on stage where you're like, yo, there, you're hanging out with friends. Let me show you this old picture from 4 years ago. I need a half hour to scroll through all this crap. And just to be able to type in, whatever, to be able to type in submarine. Oh, yeah, that was cool.
As you can see, almost there for the desktop version, not quite.
Yeah. And to make matters even cooler, going with Michael's point, probably sharing was the part that I liked the most. Usually if you want to share a photo with somebody, you have to have it locally on your device or share a link or whatever, and that person has to download the photo on their device. But the way this Photos application is going to work is you can select whatever photos you have. Let's say you select 25 random photos out of your whole list, and out of those 25 photos, it'll generate a specific link for you and allow you to share just that, and you can either view a small website with that, or if that person uses Google Photos, these photos can automatically be imported to his Google Photos application without the need of you downloading or uploading anything, which is really cool. You won't need to do things twice. And who is beside an airport?
Yeah,
I think it's
That's me. That's the sound of freedom. Sorry, that's F-22 is going over.
I'm also getting some feedback from our own audio, and somebody's cans are turned up way too loud. I don't know whose it is though. But anyway, moving on.
Anyway, moving on. So I think that's pretty much it for Google Photos. Again, it is completely free. It should be available today. And again, if your photos are 16 megapixels or below, or video is 1080p or below, you can upload this in an unlimited fashion. Only, yes, it will have some sort of a loss when it comes to compression.
Yeah, I can't wait to see someone actually pull
else?
down some of those and look at exactly how much quality we're losing. But it's just interesting how we are naming this based on the resolution and not file size. I'm sure Sony is just hanging their heads in shame, but frustration over their 20.7 megapixel sensors and all those pixels going to waste now. But
oh man, does that mean the quality, the great quality of my 20 megapixel M9 camera is going to go down now? Darn.
Oh, ow! A burn from the Midwest.
Speaking of burns, how about Hayato, since you started talking right now, how about if you tell us a little more about the new Maps updates that are coming?
Yeah, so the maps are actually really cool because so now they're bringing off offline compatibility with Maps, so it's going to kind of take the same kind of feature from things like Nokia Here Maps that have the offline features, and that's really great for especially people that are either just in a bad connection area, or if you're doing a lot of traveling, if you're driving across the highway, and a lot of the time most people kind of tend to drop their signal there, and they can't navigate to where they're trying to go. So you can use Google Maps offline now. You download the map that you need, and it'll still give you the navigation with turn-by-turn voice navigation and everything. What I think is really cool about it is the fact that you can actually still get the suggestions while you're searching for something. So if I search for restaurants on a downloaded offline map, it'll still give me recommendations, and it'll even still pull in reviews for those local areas. So it really keeps a lot of the functionality, pretty much all of the functionality of online Google Maps, regardless of whether you're connected or not.
Yeah.
Hayato, maybe you mentioned this. I'm sorry, but I've been wondering, like, how wide is the scope of that catch zone? Like when you when do you say, like, all right, well, I'm going to be offline for a while, so I really need to download a bunch of maps for this region,
I'm not really sure what the scope is. I would assume you just download probably a city at a time or so.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
I
the
have
old
used
one
the
was really
previous
bad.
old one. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really bad. It was an
So
arbitrary limit. You had to really figure out where
Right,
to
do
put
multiple
it.
ones, make them overlap was a pain in the ass. So I'm presuming that this thing is a lot more streamlined and able to capture a much larger area. So you're not stopping halfway through your trip and re-downloading stuff.
One other thing to keep in mind here, guys. Google just acquired Waze, and the way that the Waze app has been doing that is when you log in you open up your map you're saying, I want to go from point A to point B, Waze is going to go out and automatically bring in that entire trip. So where you're going from right now to right there, plus a couple different routes, plus whatever the current state is of weather and alerts and restaurants and points of interest along the way, it's going to pull all of that to your device as you're setting up that navigation to begin with. So if you go offline, you still have that information present. That sounds a lot like what Google Maps is going to be doing here automatically, but it's going to have some way to enable you to pull that down as well through some kind of magic offline mode that I still don't fully understand.
I think it's a habit thing. Like, for example, every time that I travel to places, I always download the maps automatically, and because you never know if you will have data connectivity or not. I guess for frequent travelers, that's going to be a good tool to have. But again, I think it depends on habits mainly.
Yeah.
In other cases, I mean, if you're on a limited data plan and you're reaching your cap, this is another option. Just download your map, and you won't need to be spending data for navigation.
Yeah.
Which could be roaming
like
data as well.
I also have to wonder about updates, whether or not, hey, this business is closed down, or like there has to be some sort of way to, efficiently update a saved map, because imagine the pain that would be if, some outdated information you used turned out, hey, you drove down a wrong way street now, and you crashed.
And that playground you're looking for, it's an industrial park now. We're at a glue factory.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that currently, when you download a map, it does update itself periodically when you connect to Wi-Fi.
As far as
I think it does.
I can't comment on that. I would imagine that it would just for liability sake, but I don't know the mechanism that it does it.
Yeah. Again, it's something that we'll have to prove, and this map service is going to be available until end of the year, later this year. No dates were provided. We also got updates for services like Google Play, Google Cardboard. I don't know if you want to summarize that quickly, Stephen.
Sure. We saw the first Cardboard launched last year at I/O, and for this year, why not have the second gen announced? Google has a new design for the Cardboard viewer. It's simpler. It's compatible with more phones. They used to have this NFC or magnet that it used to trigger the button. Now it's a simple hardware thing designed out of cardboard, appropriately enough. Construction is going to be streamlined. There's only 3 steps to assembly, rather down from 12. And it supports a wider range of devices, now with those up to screen sizes as large as 6 inches. So the Nexus 6 will be right at home with this guy. Third parties will be able to start making their own viewers with these plans immediately. And Google, of course, giving out the viewers to attendees of I/O. We also learned about an SDK, which now has cross-platform support with iOS. So you'll be able to use your iPhone to view content designed for Google Cardboard. There's also a new way to create content, something called Jump. I don't get this wrong. Is it Jump? This is also new. It's a special rig that they built where developers of hardware can make a way to automatically record 360-degree content in 3D. GoPro is an early partner here, and it's going to then use a special algorithm to stitch everything together. But for right now, Google Cardboard is already having some pretty high popularity. This is something like 1 million Cardboard viewers have been bought by users out there, and to push that number even higher, you need high-quality content. So making it easier for people to create this is going to be key to Cardboard's future growth. We also heard about a way for students to access this. It's kind of a guided way through Cardboard, where a teacher can use a tablet and sort of take classes on a virtual field trip with all the students using their own viewers, teacher guiding them along. They can look at stuff like they're just there. And this fits into Google's broader connecting the world strategy here, exposing people to places they might not normally see. And in the months to come, we're going to start seeing these new Google viewers. We're going to get higher quality content out there. So a lot of improvements in this field.
Yeah, Google just killed field trips for kids.
The other thing that they mentioned there was all of these immersive videos are going to be hosted on YouTube. So they're going to use the YouTube channel to allow people to watch this content rather than creating some new proprietary thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they've got the whole architecture in place already to make this a big thing.
It's
if
going to be
they,
like that.
catches hold.
Yeah, it's going to be like that GoPro, that new 6-mount GoPro thing that does 3D and
16 mount.
16 mount? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's a monster.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is only for emerging markets. The immersive field trip thing.
I don't think it's only for emerging
No,
markets.
I don't
No.
think
I think they demoed it with videos of I think there was the same section of I/O where they were talking about the Kenyan farmer. So
There was a lot of
that
emerging
blended
market stuff
together.
we didn't get to. I mean, if we're going back to photos for a second, or maps, and going back to the offline storage, they talked about YouTube having offline availability for areas where data connectivity isn't what we would like it to be. And we saw a new low data web browsing and search tool that will allow the important content to come through while cutting back on extraneous graphics and making it possible to get a solid Google experience out of the web even when you don't have high quality 4G or even 3G speeds. So that's going to be important in developing markets.
Yeah. All right. I think we pretty much ran down the news, and I guess the only thing that's left is really what wasn't news today. I'm extremely disappointed. Join me if you do. No Android Wear update.
And of
Well, they
course,
just dumped the
there's
update on us. I mean, the update came 2 weeks ago, so they took the opportunity to re-announce the update. Basically,
Yeah,
some of us are still waiting for that update.
Yeah, all of us are still waiting for that update. Tony's the only one that has it on Watch Your Pain. But I guess what I'm saying is Android M was demoed, but there was no show. There's no Android M version for Android Wear.
It's on a different development
update.
schedule. I mean, they just, like I said, they just announced that update, right? So it's it's disappointing. Yeah, I agree with you, Jaime, but I wasn't at all surprised.
Look at this.
What version do you have?
5.1.
You have. Oh, you have it.
Oh man, I gotta start running that on my GWatch-R. Oh, that is my GWatch-R.
So that's about to change. That's about to change. Anybody? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask if we were hitting any questions before we go, because there's one I want to answer if we do.
Please go ahead, by all means.
Just this one's from Christopher Miles, a really good question, who asks, how will Google Now on Tap be implemented on phones with physical home buttons, such as Samsung, where long presses and double taps are already taken? So, Christopher, this is I don't know how to answer this yet, but I will tell you that on the Note 4, which I'm using right now, which I'm using again for the purposes of an After the Buzz re-review, the long press is taken, yes, but it's taken by Google Now. So I think they will probably just reassign that in the next version, and probably Android M will contain some special allowances for devices running a manufacturer third-party UI to sort of force it to do what Google wants, because I have a feeling they're going to really be pitching Google Now on Tap pretty hard.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Another question that we have in the Q&A, now that you mentioned it, from Ivan, is asking about Nexus devices. Anybody disappointed here?
I didn't think there was a solid chance of us getting anything. If we were going to get any new hardware, it was going to be Android Wear. And Google's established it's really not interested in this summertime small tablet launch anymore. So we're going to wait till the fall. We'll get a Nexus phone, maybe 2 phones, maybe not a new tablet at all this year, but not for a few more months.
The only thing I can say about the Nexus users is I kind of feel like the Nexus phones are going to feel a little left out now with some of the new support that Android M is going to bring, like the fingerprint scanner and the what was the other thing?
Seriously.
Presumably going forward, we'll see fingerprint scanner support in Nexus hardware.
Well, sure, but even the Nexus 6, it doesn't have a fingerprint scanner. You're kind of out of luck there, and
I still don't think the public at large is sold on the worth of fingerprint scanners. Maybe Android Pay will convince us otherwise. So I don't think.
I disagree. I mean, they're on every iPhone that's been released for the past 3 years or something like that, or two or 3 years, and then the Galaxy S6 and Edge are only going to improve on that. I mean, no, I think the public is very.
I don't hear anyone clamoring
they're
for them.
sold.
They
just don't associate that. You can put your thumb to a credit card reader and hey, magic.
No, I don't think
I
this
don't
is a
think
massive
so.
leap for people. I have more faith in people than that. I think that everyone's been watching science fiction fingerprint scanners for long enough.
You've been out of the retail business for too long, Michael. If you still
That's a good point. Adam.
We're only making the transition from cash to credit. I mean, it's gone down from like 60% down to, whatever, and the plastic is like still 30% of all transactions. I can't even begin to imagine the proportion of, those wireless NFC payments and how much they make of the POS.
Yeah.
Google mentioned a lot of new retail partners who are going to be supporting Android Pay. Presumably companies who already have contactless readers in place that are supporting Apple Pay right now. And it'll probably just get better as retailers upgrade their systems, newer POS models. We'll see broader support. It's growing little by little.
I think it does have a future. I mainly think it does have a future because of the fingerprint scanning capabilities. But for that to work, it's not that they have to do away with credit cards, meaning remove the option for users to have an alternate way to pay and be and get into some sort of theft problem through that. But again, I feel it does have a future because of the fingerprint scanning. That's just my opinion. The problem is I haven't really tested it, so I can't really.
So just to throw this out there, guys, the company that I work for my day job, we're a completely iOS shop as far as mobile devices go. Every single one of our phones is set up with fingerprint enabled as a security measure, so we don't have anything that's unlocked and then it's required that you don't turn that off. So from an enterprise perspective and things going forward, fingerprints are a very easy way to get security. I've already mentioned in articles over on the website why that might not be a good thing, but enterprises are going to adopt this, payments are going to adopt this. It's the future, like it or not.
Yeah, no, I think you have a point. Definitely.
All this will be integrated into Android M or Android Michael Fisher, as Alex plays.
There you go.
He's such a dessert. No, he's a beefcake.
So, Christian Koglaser, Aquamorph on Twitter, reminded us that, in fact, internally, Android M is known as MNC. It's Mike November Charlie, which does lend some credence to a possible macadamia nut cookie. Yeah, so
probably at least if history.
But wasn't that the case with Android L? It was called lemon meringue pie for a long time, and then out of the blue, boom, lollipop.
And
they shortened
until they're able to secure a partnership with. Oh, exactly right, Joe. Yeah. Until they're able to secure a partnership with the Mars candy company, I think we should hold our breath.
Android Mars. And we're back to the three-word code words.
That is actually not a bad idea. Android Mars.
There you go.
Android Milky Way. Why not?
There you go.
Yeah,
It's like
nice.
a Pong game earlier.
Gentlemen, are we missing anything?
Yeah, we are. Just
probably.
one thing.
Go ahead.
Just one thing, and this is going to be the last thing I say. David Singleton, I think, had the quote of the day, the lead for Android Wear, with his quote that, what did he say? It's really cool to check the time. When he talked about checking the time on your watch. Like, checking the time is a really cool thing. I was like, yeah,
okay.
Indeed.
Yep. He said, "We love watches."
Watches.
Are those going to be your final thoughts, Michael, or would you like to elaborate on anything else?
No, I'm ready to. I'm going to join everyone else who's already written 14,000 think pieces on why Google Now on tap is the next big thing. But more importantly, and I'm about to write about this, it is the next thing that's going to make it easy to explain to people why you have an Android phone instead of an iPhone. Because the iPhone's not going to be able to do anything like it. And
wait a second.
I'm not trolling, Jaime. I'm not trying to start one of those things. I'm just saying it hasn't been terribly easy to describe why you carry one platform over another. This is going to be a very big talking point when it rolls out, if it works right.
Yeah.
True.
It's going to be phrased just like this. It's going to be, why do I carry an Android? Watch this.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Your biggest problem, Michael and Joe, is called Google, because this is the company that launches those exact same tools on iOS eventually. That's the problem. And then we also have the rumors of
It's not
iOS.
going to have the
it
great
won't work on
contextual
iOS.
apps. Yeah.
iOS is far too closed for this to function. Yeah, that's the thing. It's that even in that way, it's even more important as an Android development.
I mean, we might get the natural language processing improvements to Google Voice Search, but we're not going to see anywhere near the type, or even at all, the sort of app integration that's going to be key in making
The integration,
Android experience so key.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's definitely a good point. And now you were speaking, Joe. Any final thoughts?
I'm going to go back to my old line and say, wow, we saw an awful lot of cool stuff. It sure is a great time to be alive.
Amen, Joe. Nicely done.
And Joe, definitely. Mr. Hayato Huseman, any final thoughts?
I'm resonating with Joe there.
Cool. How about you, Jules?
Yeah, I'm going to keep everyone here for 3 minutes longer so that I can talk about Android Auto. No, the only thing worth talking about. I mean, we saw the release beforehand, and talked about Chevy's. All 15 of their 2016 models are going to have Android Auto as well as Apple CarPlay. I don't know.
Hyundai, GM, Volkswagen, and more.
GM, Volkswagen. They just announced during the keynote.
I guess the reason why I've been ignored Android Auto like completely is because it's been announced for like the longest time, and it took this long to get partners.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's here. They're announcing partners every at that kind of pace. So we should see it more of that soon, and beyond all the other head-mount car dashboard systems.
We'll
It's been
see.
hard to get excited about so far, just because of the high barrier to entry. Whether you're buying an expensive new in-dash system or a whole new car, it's not something everyone's going to get to experience straight away.
Exactly.
But over time, we'll see these systems in more and more cars, and I think popularity will grow accordingly.
I'm just going to keep on taking the tea and not have to worry about it.
There you go.
Just jettison this off.
What will your final thoughts be, Stephen?
I think, based on what I've heard about Android M, I am cautiously optimistic. It might finally be time to upgrade. I'm still running KitKat on my Nexus 5 here, so fingers crossed I see enough what I like here to finally step forward.
Wow, dude.
Time will tell.
You are strong, man. How can you avoid the need to update? Seriously. Seriously.
I got Lollipop on my tablet. I got enough Lollipop in my life.
Steven, will you trade me that Nexus 5 for my fiance's whose Nexus got destroyed by Lollipop?
I guess, and I think the best way to end it is with Joe's quote. It's a great time to be alive. Google proves that there is a lot of innovation coming. I am looking forward to Android M mainly because I do hate how Lollipop has, just made devices useless in some points. I mean, my Galaxy Note Edge was not that bad on KitKat, but now it's terrible. So I guess the biggest problem or the biggest takeover here is how long will it take Google or OEM partners to update their phones? That's the only problem that's left. That's what we have to wait for. The developer preview is already available. You can bet that we will be posting coverage on this developer preview and our impressions on what we get with Android M. Again, we have a lot of
Rithvik's downloading it right now.
Oh yeah, you bet.
I'm downloading that now.
Yeah, in the car.
LTE.
Hey, guys,
no Edge.
Guys, we have a lot of coverage coming. Again, the Pocketnow Weekly will go in-depth with everything that we saw at this event, in addition to other things that have happened this week. You can expect the full Google I/O version of the Pocketnow Daily happening later today. We've got a lot of posts, a lot of editorials coming on our impressions, and yes, this editorial roundtable you could come back to later. Guys, thank you very much for joining our editorial roundtable. Thank you, everyone, for your Q&A. Sadly, we couldn't go through them, but you can bet that we will try to cover these in eventual coverage that'll come within the later days. So, again, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next coverage that's to come. See you soon.